If you were looking at City Park from the street, or even walking through the park, you may not know any of the supernatural history that has been associated with the park, or about the strange events that have been reported to have occurred within its grounds. Throughout the history of the land, there have been many weird accounts that have been documented, the first dating back thousands of years in the verbal history passed down from generation to generation within the Shawnee tribe. Today, we will explore the stories, myths, and accounts of the supernatural. We tend to think of the places where we live in the here and in the now, but in reality, the places we live have been here for a very long time. Others came before us, and sometimes those lines between today and yesterday begin to blur. Before the Europeans made their way across the pond to the New World, this land was the home of the indigenous Indian tribes who shared the land. Researching those tribes, I was able to uncover a story from one of the indigenous tribes local to the Hagerstown area pre-colonial times. It comes from the verbal history of the Shawnee. As the story goes, a young brave called Lalawithka was out hunting in the area with his party. He had stopped to get himself a drink of water from the natural spring located in what we now call City Park. While he was getting a drink, a mama bear with 3 cubs had also come to the watering hole. Startled, the young brave grabbed for his bow and tried to shout out a warning to the others in his hunting party. But the mama bear was also startled and quicker than he was, and killed the young brave with a single swipe of her mighty paw. The bear had caught the young man on the neck with her claw, and the warning shout never came. It is said that to this day, should you be in the vicinity of the natural spring, and some danger is about to come upon you, you may hear a gurgling sound, as if Lalawethka was still trying to shout out that warning. Tragedy is something this land is used to seeing. We now move forward to 1861. While the Civil War raged in the area, John Henry Heysers' beloved wife, Susan, dubbed by the locals as the mistress of Cedar Lawn, met her untimely death at the age of 35, giving birth to their 5th child. It is said that she was heard quietly saying that she would never leave her children and would always be there to protect them. Although the local lore also says that it was because she did not want to let go of her precious Cedar Lawn that her remains haunt the park. It was said that there was a favorite bench that she enjoyed sitting on and watching the birds within the confines of Cedar Lawn. The spot was just north of the old barn's location where John would produce and bottle his wine. The wooden bench John had made has long since been reclaimed by nature. However, at some point, a concrete bench was placed near that spot, sometime in the 1980s, I believe. It was done so without knowing the significance of the location. After the placement, when people would sit on that bench, they would have an uneasy feeling of being watched. Sometimes people would have a feeling of a tingling in their head, as though invisible fingers were running through their hair. After a while, people stopped sitting on that bench, and the weeds have taken most of it over, and the place that she enjoyed sitting in life has all been but reclaimed by nature. A year later, Union General Robert Patterson's troops of Pennsylvania Volunteers used Hagerstown as a base to attack Lee's Army of Northern Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley. Here's an excerpt from the diary of Private William Yeager, Pennsylvania Volunteers, June 12, 1862. Dusk was almost upon us as we arrived in Hagerstown. Private Peters and I had drawn scout duty, and we were about 30 minutes or so ahead of the rest of our unit. As we approached Heysers Woods, we spied movement in the clearing. We slowed to a crawl as we spied 2 sentries posted near the natural spring. There was a rumor that Stonewall Jackson's unit was in the vicinity. We instantly took the both of them for Confederate soldiers and figured that they were Stonewall Jackson's men. The 2 men appeared to be keeping their eye on the natural spring that we had been heading toward to quench our thirst. If we could get the jump on them, we might be able to rouse them from the Shenandoah Valley once and for all. Peters knew we couldn't make it and recommended that we both stop and load our rifles. We did so as quietly as we could. The moon was bright in the sky, and because of that, we knew there was no way we could sneak up on the 2 of them. We lay there as quietly as we could, taking aim at the 2 men guarding the natural spring. Peters signaled over to me, and both of us fired our rounds simultaneously. The sound of our rifles cracked into the quiet night. I could swear I heard a loud gurgling, and seconds later, both of our bullets hit the marks, and both of the men dropped to the ground, killed instantly by our bullets. Sadly, as the rest of the account goes, upon investigation of the men that they had killed, they were in fact not Confederate soldiers, but instead local artisans who had come to gather clay in the cool of the night to make their wares for their shops the next day. It has been said that since that time, if it is quiet enough, you just may hear the death sounds of those 2 men. Another story that was told years ago once again focused on the lady of Cedar Lawn, Susan Heiser. It states that should you be walking through the park at one of the times that she used to enjoy taking her walks, you may feel a ghostly hand slip into yours as you stroll. You may feel her gently grip your fingers as she takes your hand and walks with you through the grounds. The final tale I have for you today is the story of some young pranksters who would frequent the park area in the early 1900s, pulling pranks on people for years. A group of 3 boys and 2 girls. They enjoyed pranking other townsfolk who were enjoying the lake. They had made quite a reputation for themselves as the town jokesters. In 1918, when the influenza pandemic hit Washington County, sickening thousands and killing over 400, 3 of those pranksters had fallen to the sickness. The other 2 moved away with their families. Since that time, although the pranksters were no longer in the area, the pranks didn't stop. People having a picnic would have items disappear from one side of their blanket and suddenly appear on the other side. As the park expanded, it gave those prankster ghosts a larger area to prank in. Instead of blankets, they had picnic tables to move things around on. Perhaps the strangest prank is the bench swings located in the park. There are several of them, 2 in the older area of the park, and 1 in the newer section by the large lake. If you happen to be there at the right time, you may see them suddenly start swinging all by themselves. They may even begin pushing you if you happen to be sitting on one of the swings. I hope you enjoyed our spooky little tale of ghostly happenings in and around City Park. And remember, should you see something otherworldly happening to you as you stroll through the park, don't worry. It's just the days of yesterday beginning to blur with the today.